Step into the history forge, fact and fable, where real battles, legendary heroes, and untold stories come alive.
The explosion tears through the forest canopy, sending razor-sharp with splinters into Private Eugene Kowalski's foxhole. It's November 16, 1944, and the dark pines of the Hürtgen Forest have become a slaughterhouse. Tree burst, shells detonating in the treetops. Rain death from above, turning nature itself into shrapnel. Eugene presses his face into the frozen mud, tasting blood and earth, while somewhere ahead, German machine guns chatter like typewriters writing death notices. Medic, the scream cuts through the chaos, but Eugene knows better than to move. In these woods 60 miles from where the Battle of the Bulge will soon erupt, American soldiers are dying at a rate that makes D-Day look merciful. The forest stretches 50 square miles along the Belgian-German border, a natural fortress that swallows entire divisions. Every tree hides a sniper. Every clearing conceals a minefield. Every hill costs 100 lives. Eugene Sargent, a tough Texan named Marcus Briggs, crawls toward him through the undergrowth, his uniform torn and bloody. Kowalski will pull him back, he gasps, but the words die in his throat. A German 88 millimeters shell screams overhead, and the world explodes into white light. When Eugene opens his eyes, Briggs is gone. Only his helmet remains, spinning slowly in a crater that wasn't there 5 seconds ago. 3 months earlier, in September 1944, American generals studied their maps in comfortable headquarters far from the front lines. The Hürtgen Forest appeared as a dark green patch between Aachen and the Rhine River, just another obstacle on the road to Berlin. General Courtney Hodges, commanding the First Army, saw it differently. Control those woods, he argued, and you protect the flank of the advance into Germany. What he didn't know was that Adolf Hitler had already designated the forest as a killing ground, ordering his commanders to hold at all costs. The forest itself was ancient, untouched by modern civilization. Villages like Schmidt, Wassenack, and Kammerscheid nestled in clearings, their residents evacuated as the Wehrmacht transformed every house into a fortress. German engineers had spent months preparing defenses. Concrete bunkers disguised as hillsides, anti-tank obstacles hidden beneath autumn leaves, and thousands of mines buried in trails American soldiers would inevitably use. Field Marshal Walter Model, Hitler's defensive genius, called it the perfect mousetrap. Eugene Kowalski had arrived with the 28th Infantry Division in early November, part of the 4th American Division, to enter what German soldiers called the Death Factory. His unit replaced the shattered 9th Infantry Division, which had lost 4,500 men in 2 weeks, for a gain of 3,000 yards. As Eugene's truck rolled past wounded soldiers being evacuated, one grabbed his sleeve. "Don't go in there, kid," the soldier whispered, his eyes hollow. The trees have eyes." The German defense system in the Hürtgen was a masterpiece of military engineering. 3 defensive lines stretched the forest, each anchored on villages turned into concrete strongpoints. The Siegfried Line, Germany's western wall, cut through the woods with dragon's teeth tank obstacles and pillboxes with interlocking fields of fire. Between these lines, German infantry dug in with mortars pre-registered on every trail, every clearing, every spot where Americans might gather. Captain Friedrich Kellner of the 275th Infantry Division had fought in Russia before being transferred to the Hürtgen. "In Russia we feared the winter," he wrote in his diary. "Here we are the winter." His men had turned the forest into a 3-dimensional battlefield. They built bunkers into hillsides, connected by tunnels that allowed them to pop up behind American lines. They hung mines from trees at neck height. They zeroed artillery on their own abandoned positions, knowing Americans would occupy them. The weather became Germany's ally. October rains turned trails into rivers of mud that swallowed vehicles whole. November brought freezing rain that coated everything in ice. Soldiers couldn't dig foxholes in the frozen ground. They couldn't see enemies 50 feet away in the dense undergrowth. Eugene's squad leader, Sergeant Tommy Chin from San Francisco, tried to keep morale up with jokes. "Hey, Kowalski," he'd say, At least in the Pacific, guys can see what's killing them. But even Chen's humor died after their first patrol found 6 men from another company frozen to death in their foxholes. On November 2nd, Eugene's division received orders to capture Schmidt, a village on high ground that controlled the Roar River dams. The battle plan looked simple on paper. One regiment would hold Wassenack while another swept through the woods to take Schmidt. Nobody mentioned that the woods included a gorge called the Call Trail, barely wide enough for a jeep. With a 200-foot drop on one side and German positions on the other, the attack began in thick morning fog. Eugene's company moved through the forest in single file, each man holding the belt of the soldier ahead to avoid getting lost. Tree bursts exploded constantly, turning pine needles into deadly projectiles. Keep moving. Sergeant Briggs shouted. Standing still just makes you an easier target. They took Schmidt on November 3rd, surprising the German garrison. For 12 hours, it seemed like victory. Eugene found a German kitchen with hot soup still on the stove. Private Danny Novak from Detroit played a piano in the church while others cheered. Then the counterattack came. German armor, Panthers and Tigers, rolled out of hidden positions at dawn. American Sherman tanks trying to reach Schmidt got stuck on the Call Trail, blocking retreat. The German artillery barrage was so intense that trees disintegrated, creating an apocalyptic landscape of splinter stumps. Eugene watched a tank shell hit a squad crossing a street, leaving nothing but a red mist. Within 72 hours, the Americans abandoned Schmidt, leaving behind 6,184 casualties. The division was so shattered it would later collapse completely during the Battle of the Bulge. By mid-November, survival in the Hürtgen meant forgetting everything they taught in basic training. Eugene learned to recognize the whistle of different shells, the screaming memise of Nebelwerfer rockets, the freight train sound of 88s, the whisper of mortars that gave you 2 seconds to hit the ground. He learned that the safest place during a tree burst was standing straight against a thick trunk, letting shrapnel pass on either side. He learned to strip dead Germans of their winter boots, because American boots fell apart in the mud. The forest destroyed unit cohesion. Companies got separated in the undergrowth. Platoons wandered lost for hours in identical-looking pine groves. Maps were useless when every hill looked the same. Eugene's squad found themselves cut off behind German lines for 2 days, hiding in a captured bunker while German patrols passed within feet of their position. They survived on melted snow and chocolate bars from dead soldiers' pockets. Private Lou Rizzuto from Boston went mad from the pressure, screaming about trees watching him until Sergeant Chun had to knock him unconscious. The medics were the real heroes. Eugene watched medic Jacob Weinstein from Brooklyn crawl through machine gun fire to reach wounded men, dragging them to safety one by one. The Germans usually respected the Red Cross armband, but in the confusion of forest fighting, medics died at the same rate as riflemen. Weinstein saved 12 men before mine took his legs. As they carried him out, he kept apologizing. Sorry, guys. Sorry I can't help anymore. He died before reaching the aid station, still clutching his medical supplies. By December 1944, the Hürtgen had devoured 7 American divisions. The forest floor was carpeted with bodies that couldn't be evacuated under fire. Wounded men froze to death before stretcher bearers could reach them. Eugene found a soldier who'd been hit by white phosphorus, the chemical still burning through his chest. There was nothing to do but watch him die. The man's last words were, "Tell my mother I wasn't scared." General Ernest Hemingway, there as a war correspondent, called it Passchendaele with tree bursts. He was with the 22nd Infantry Regiment when they lost 2,678 men in 18 days, capturing 2 villages. The fighting was so close that Americans and Germans threw grenades at each other from opposite sides of the same hedgerow. They fought with knives and bunkers, too small for rifles. Eugene killed a German soldier with an entrenching tool in a struggle over a machine gun position, the man's blood freezing on his hands before he could wipe it off. The bitter irony was strategic irrelevance. While Americans died for worthless villages in the Hürtgen, the German army was secretly massing for the Ardennes offensive, the Battle of the Bulge. The forest battles had weakened American divisions that would soon face that surprise attack. On December 16th, as German armor punched through American lines in the Ardennes, Eugene's decimated division could barely muster a defense.
We're taking
The
heavy fire.
Hürtgen had achieved
I don't
exactly
know how
what
much
Hitler
longer we can
intended,
hold out.
bleeding the Americans white while protecting the buildup for Germany's last
taking heavy fire.
great offensive. February
how much longer we can
1945
hold out.
brought the final American offensive to clear the Hürtgen. Eugene,
We're taking
now
heavy
a corporal
fire.
after all his
I don't
sergeants
know how
died,
much longer we can
led
hold
8
out.
replacements who'd never seen combat. Stay low, move fast, and don't bunch up, he told
We're
them,
taking heavy fire.
seeing his own terror from
I don't
3
know how much
months
longer
ago
we can hold out.
reflected in their eyes. The forest was a moonscape now. Not a single tree stood
We're taking
intact.
heavy fire.
Just endless fields of
know how much
splintered
longer we
stumps
can
and
hold
frozen
out.
corpses emerging from melting snow. The capture of the Ruhr dams finally
taking
came
heavy
on
fire.
February 10th,
I don't know
after
how
the
much
Germans
longer we can
blew
hold
them
out.
up and flooded the valley. Eugene's squad was attacking Hill 493
We're taking
when they
heavy
ran into
fire.
the last German defensive
I don't
line.
know how much
A
longer we
hidden
can hold
machine
out.
gun opened up, cutting down 3 of his new men instantly.
Get to cover.
Eugene threw smoke grenades and charged the position with Private Anton Kovar, a Czech immigrant from Chicago. They found 2 teenage German soldiers, no older than 16, crying as they fired the machine gun. Kovar hesitated. Eugene didn't. The breakthrough came suddenly. German resistance collapsed as their units ran out of ammunition and food. Eugene walked through the ruins of Schmidt, the village they'd briefly held in November. Now nothing but rubble and frozen corpses. In a destroyed church, he found the piano Private Novak had played, its keys stained with blood. A German prisoner, recognizing Eugene's division patch, said in broken English, "You are the ones from November. We thought you were all dead." Eugene replied, "We are." The Battle of Hürtgen Forest officially ended on February 27, 1945. Though scattered fighting continued into March. The Americans suffered 33,000 casualties,
we did
killed,
not want
wounded,
this.
and missing,
So much.
plus 9,000
Gone.
non-combat losses from trench foot, frostbite, and combat exhaustion.
We
German losses were similar,
did not want this.
around 28,000,
so much.
in what
Gone.
historians would later call the longest single battle the U.S. Army ever fought
We
on German soil.
did not want this.
For Eugene Kowalski,
So much.
the numbers
Gone.
meant nothing. He'd enter the forest with 42 men in his platoon. 5 walked
We
out.
did not want
The
this.
strategic value
So
of the
much.
battle remains
Gone.
debated. The Ruhr dams weren't captured intact.
We
The forest didn't need to
did
be
not
cleared.
want this.
The Americans
much.
could have bypassed
Gone.
it entirely. The German divisions destroyed, they were quickly replaced.
We did not want this.
General James
So
Gavin
much.
later called it
Gone.
our most ill-advised battle of the war. But for the soldiers who fought there,
did
it
not
was
want
simply
this.
about survival.
So much.
Eugene received a
Gone.
Bronze Star he never wanted in battle scars, both visible and hidden. He'd
did
carry
not want
forever.
this.
Eugene
So
returned
much.
to the Hürtgen in
Gone.
1985, an old man with grandchildren. The forest had regrown, peaceful and green, hiding its secrets beneath new growth. At the military cemetery near Wassenaar, he found Sergeant Briggs' grave among 8,000 white crosses. He left Chen's favorite cigarettes at his marker and Weinstein's medical corps insignia at his, standing where his foxhole had been, now covered in wildflowers. Eugene finally allowed himself to cry, for the boys who never came home, for the innocents lost in those dark woods, and for a battle that history would largely forget while its survivors could never stop remembering.